Welcome to Speaker's Corner at J2v. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Martha, and today I'm joined by 4 members of the Union Collective, a Palestinian-based art and music crew. So we have Saruna. Hello.
Hi.
DJ Dar.
Hello.
Darbak.
Hi.
And Sama. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to you guys helping me get a better understanding of Palestine's relationship to techno, this music of unity and resistance. To get us going, Sama, shall we start by getting a bit of insight into your music journey so far?
Yeah.
Would you be able to take me back? Because I would like to know what your earliest memory connected to music or sound is.
That is a tough one. It can go in between piano and Michael Jackson. That is my first memory. My sister used to take piano lessons, and my mom used to always play Michael Jackson. So, and after that, I started taking piano lessons, and I started listening to Michael Jackson. So that's how it started.
And how about DJing? How did you first come to start being a selector and a DJ?
I was a kid in high school, I was a kid, and we had issues in parties that we didn't really have DJs, so we used to play whatever's on the radio or fight over who's gonna play his CD. So I just wanted to play the music, and my dad just went along with it. So I started DJing for birthdays, school events, things like that, and then it just started growing from there, and then I studied it at university and became professional.
Okay. So when you were at university, is that where electronic music came into the mix?
Yeah, when I first went to uni when I was 18, I went to study in Lebanon, and that's the first time I heard techno. And I got really into it. Then I went and studied audio engineering and music production, and one of my teachers, who is now kind of part of the collective as well. He was a DJ in Canada, and he played tribal music. So he was teaching me how to properly DJ instead of what I was doing, which was not DJing really. I was pressing play and just,
So is that where you sort of began to learn the intricacies of mixing and DJing as kind of like an art form?
Exactly. That's when I started getting what DJs do. Actually, when I started living in Lebanon, that's when I realized that everything I was doing was off. I went there and I was like, oh, that is what a DJ does. Okay, now I get it. Okay, cool. I wasn't DJing.
The big realization.
Yeah, big one, yeah.
Tell me about your role in kind of helping to build the scene in Ramallah via Haifa.
Well, I started doing parties in Ramallah after I started studying in music production. So I started trying out to do what I saw in Lebanon back home. Didn't really work. Then I met Fida from Haifa, who came to Palestine, to Ramallah, to do the first venue or open the first pub that allows like these things. And anyways, I think the fact that she stood with the idea of doing that party is the reason why it started happening, because after me failing 3 times, I started a bit distancing from myself from the idea of, okay, maybe this won't work, this is just like in my head. But the fact that she stood by it that much and she worked in that way, I was a DJ, she was an organizer. So she managed to do that and get people from Haifa to Ramallah, introduce us to each other and create this boom that happened all of a sudden. And from us having no parties, it turned to us having parties every month to every week. And then all of a sudden it just started happening if different organizers started showing up and doing their own events and more DJs appearing. And then it started creating these groups of people that are always doing parties together, mostly house parties. Then one day it just like, I don't know why, I wanted to make a festival. And I contacted Caidan, and I was like, because I'm living in France, so I'm not really on the ground. So I need somebody in Palestine to do the thing, and I can help from here. So I contacted Caidan and which Dar and Darbak. Why are your names so close? Anyway, I contacted Darren Darbak, and we decided to create this community, this collective of artists. And we brought in Saruna and the rest of the crew. And yeah, and it's just these small things of, just connecting with friends and trying to create the space that you wish you have back home.
Well, that brings us nicely on to hearing a bit more about the collective. So let's open up our conversation back to the rest of you guys. Who would be up for telling me a bit more about Union Collective, starting with when you formed and how you work together?
I was going to give it to Caidan because
I knew there. We all were going looking at you, Durar.
Well, so I believe that our first major party for Union hit in 2018, and that was our New Year's party. And it really brought a lot of people together to a new venue that we had discovered. Caidan had discovered this venue, and we transformed it into a space that identified with us. It was something that honestly had changed the landscape in Ramallah. And how it turned was that bringing all these different people with different backgrounds, visual artists, graphic designers, craftsmen, like we had a carpenter on the team working with us. Like just all these people came together, and yeah, we hit this really big party. It was one of the first parties in Ramallah that I would say that the venue had more than one dance floor, so people were able to like move from one space to another. We had 12 DJs in one night. Like in Ramallah, one of the biggest problems that we have is the time limits. So we were able to break that and like keep going till
there was no. I stopped the party the first time in my life. I stopped the party because we needed to go home. It was going on for like more than 12 hours, and everybody was using my equipment because we don't have equipment. So my laptop has been playing for a day, and my equipment, and I'm like, I really need to sleep. And the police didn't shut us down. Nobody's gonna shut us down, and we can go on forever. Please, someone stop it. Like when you feel like, because we don't put an endpoint to a party. We never put the parties from 7 to 4. We just put from 8 till it closes down, because it always closes down. But they didn't find us that day, and nobody just couldn't close the party. So all of a sudden we're in the next day and we're like, oh my God, nobody's looking for, like, this just got out of hand.
So what changed for that party? Like, why are we not restricted by the police that day?
I didn't know we were there.
We were blessed. We were in luck, I would say. I mean, there was a combination. Yeah. I think there was also that we're talking about New Year's. There's definitely a lot of parties happening. So we were in a very new location. It was, the team all organized. We had, it was not a public event per se. We were sending invitations, tell a friend. It was really that in that approach. So it was really all, I guess it was all really underground in many ways. And I mean, literally the party was underground.
Yeah. I think I would like to add that, I mean, the reasons why we ended up with Union Collective is a lot of struggle that we all kind of went through around each other, but it was a mainstream music scene that was taking over, and it was hard for us to find the space to play our sounds. And of course, there was a very small audience, and there was a little bit of, I would say, lack of collaboration, and it kind of felt that we need to have that space where we all can be who we want to be, and we can play the sounds we want to play, and we can have the place where other artists can come and say, I want to build this for you, I want to play this thing for you. And it kind of grow in that way. And we were lucky to have such a good space, and we have intimate parties. It feels close. You feel it's not just a commercial kind of, let's have fun, only, which is nice.
I would love to hear about another party that you guys have put on together, something that was just really a special moment for you, just to get even a better understanding of what your parties are like.
Well, there's the PMX one, which was the end of our parties because that's when they caught us.
Yeah.
That one was a bit mental as well, I think. Right? What else do we have? They have done most of the
Someone played a 6-hour set. You played a 6-hour set once.
Oh, right.
That was a really good.
That's true. I did a full-on 6 hour. I did it 2 parties after each other. It was what? It's a Thursday and a Friday.
Back to back.
I played 10 till it was closed the first day, and the next day I played 6 hours. I was trying to see if I could play 6 hours, and when they came to close us down, the police. I was standing there and I'm like, dude, just one more track, and he's looking at me, and they're looking at me, and they're like, so we've been playing for 6 hours. What track do you still want to play? And I just on, you know.
We organized as a union. We would also find other venues to go to, so we would branch out and just host different parties here and there. Bring the same vibe. It was really all about the atmosphere, building that vibe, bringing artists in, trying to put disco balls all around the place. But mirrors. It was really all about creating a really safe space.
I think it was nice that we also moved, like when we had when it was winter, we kind of went underground. You could hear the sounds are also a little bit different of the DJs. And when it's summer, we had a beautiful swimming pool by the location, which we used to do like a day party. And it was kind of different, like Asfur Shams maybe was also one of the parties we organized outside in nature, very close to Ramallah. And it's just amazing to see the input of all the artists. Like you walk around and you're like, crazy, how do you guys do all of this? You know, like
you spend all night doing it, eh?
Yeah, I think that's the point. The point that the community is the same, like community is small. They're the same people as the DJs and the people dancing and the one doing the installations and the art. So it creates an intimate place for everybody. So everybody feels like they belong there and, you know, they're comfortable there. You know, this is my couch for my house. It's like in the middle of the thing, you know. It's more of creating that space because we are also, as they said, not a big crowd. So creating that place where we can all just be whatever we want to be. And that time span is really good because, I don't know, it just unites us in really weird circumstances. In an underground kitchen.
I would like to hear a bit from each of you guys about, we've kind of heard from Sama already, but how did each of you guys grow your relationship to music and DJing, and how did you guys come to settle on more electronic sounds as the best way to express yourself? Saruna, would you maybe go first?
Sure. I'd actually started learning classical Arabic music. So I started out like really old school conservatory type situation. And then I ended up going to school in the States. I went to Berkeley College of Music, and I studied music production and engineering, which kind of geared my musical life into more of an electronic direction. So after that, I mean, I've always wanted to DJ. I think the first time I saw a DJ, I was like, oh, that looks like incredible. I want to do that. And like with the turntables, and I was really into hip hop, and I had this whole phase. And then after I finished school, I'd come back here, and I wasn't really into the scene before. So when I came back, I wanted to explore what was really going on. And the more I met people, the more into electronic music I started to become more interested in making it, not just going to parties and witnessing it. So, and then I met these guys and started DJing, and slowly kind of grew into this space where I was experimenting with different types of music. And so it was an interesting journey. So I think electronic music, just because also it feels very contemporary for me, at least, like the sounds, the textures, and the choices that you can make when you're making a track, and the impact it can have, and the emotional reaction you get out of people, I think is very strong. I think very different to other types of genres I work around, because I also produce music, so I kind of dabble in different genres. But yeah, electronic music seems to always have a different impact, for me at least, than other types of music I've been involved with.
Would you be able to describe the kind of impact that you see or you receive from the crowd when you play in Palestine?
Well, I think there's a strong sense of a need to escape, and so there's also that's the danger, right? At the same time, because doing music just to escape it can kind of disconnect you from also the impact that it really is trying to serve. But I think people were just really invested and into it, and very like present, very very present, and very with you, and you kind of feel like it's all like everybody needs to release something, and you're there to help people release that. So it feels very personal, and at the same time it feels incredible, because you're kind of there and you're vibing off people, and it's almost like everyone feels the way you do, and you feel the way they do, and it's kind of this really cool relationship.
Would anyone else like to add to that? Maybe a story of a time that you've been DJing where you've really felt like you're offering the crowd something special that they really need?
Oh, every time. I always express it as it's like the especially if you're doing a closing set, it's like a proper massage, and then you see people's faces going, oh my God, I need this, and you feel that because I've been there, and it does feel like that. So especially closing sets, they're really needed.
Okay. Would anyone else like? Yeah.
For me, a lot of the it was very much in the beginning where it was a lot of the house parties that we would host, and we would just go do different house parties, and just the different atmosphere, the vibe that electronic music can give you, the dark room, that safety. I think that's what it is. It's all about just that feeling safe in a space to do what you want. And I felt that was one of the first times where I was like, I really love what I'm doing here. And then slowly we started growing out to going into public spaces. But I think at the very beginning, where it was at a house level, that's where it really felt safe. And
when it was at that level, how important would you say that like partying and raving was for like you as a young person, your mental health at that point?
I mean, I think that's where my journey began, is simply because there weren't these spaces. I put my hand on a first controller trying to just figure out what it means to do, just to simply have something else going on in Ramallah. And that's how me and Karam connected and started. He got a controller, I got a controller. We started like just playing together and doing all these different parties. And I think when we first started, it just came out of that almost very selfish desire to do this. And I remember parties where I would turn around and there's one person dancing. And I remember parties where I turn around and there's like 200 people dancing. And, we went from 1 to 100. And it took years to get to that. And it really, you found an audience. And of course, we're like, the idea was never like, we're going to take over Palestine with techno. Is more or less like, hey, there is techno. There is electronic music here. You could find it here. And we were just happy about that.
Darbak, would you like to share a story of how you came to start having a kind of affinity to DJing and electronic music?
Yeah, I've been connected to music since a little bit, but I've never studied it or been close to work with it. But because I did film, so I had a little bit of closer look, and I got exposed a little bit to more house and trance when I was popping off at the early to mid 2000, and then when returned to Palestine, and you know, we kind of didn't have a place where we can go and listen to the stuff that we like. We ended up opening the houses, and luckily I was seeing Dirar and also another friend of ours who they were having a very tiny controller. It lived for like, I don't know, 6-7 years, and they were playing their tunes on it. And from that on, we were like, yeah, this is what we gotta do. We gotta play in these house parties. And we played all like very different styles of electronic music. People were tortured at some point, but we managed to find our sound, and we somehow realized that we have quite a good base of audience. So the moment we had a chance to actually take over a venue, you know, we had this conversation of like, oh, we don't want to go public, we want to stay, you know, underground. But it was kind of, we want also the people to hear the sounds that we like and to feel the feelings that we want to share. And that kind of was a really good try. It kind of got us to a point to think like, yeah, we have to keep doing this, and you know, we gotta kind of give the space for other people, the youngsters, to also perform, you know. So in a way, we kind of ended up with Union, and maybe a lot of what we do nowadays is like more organizing than DJing and having that space. But yeah, it's very nice to see that growth, and it kind of, I think the dance floor is something that we missed, and it's the community kind of environment that gives us that feeling of, you know, staying away from racism and sexism, and having that comfort in expressing ourselves, and you know, sharing a type of dance that is usually an individual kind of dance, but we have it in this kind of social big group where like it's a very good feeling.
And was there one particular party or a moment where you sort of looked around at the people present and thought, oh, these aren't just like my friends or people I know, like there's starting to be sort of like an external group who are coming to this?
Yeah,
and you sort of realize it's bigger.
I think the New Year's party, the first big party that we throw, it was very fulfilling because it was for us as a team, realizing that we can do a lot, you know, and being around the audience that was not just an audience, they were like the family, they were like part of the organizing, they were like kind of too involved, and it kind of, yeah, we had much more fun seeing that, you know. And yeah, we see the people, you know, wanting more and we see younger DJs or like younger people like trying to, you know, start to jump in and DJ, which is, yeah, it's very nice to see.
What was really cool for that first party, and also the second New Year's that we threw, we had people book. We had published that the event is going to happen. We're sending it out to emails, so people in Germany found out about the party, and we had this groups of Germans and Berliners just coming down to Ramallah. I personally met about 10 people that came from
There's a group that we stopped in the middle of the party, and we're like, wait, you seriously flew in from Berlin? And they're like, yeah. And we're like, but our friends flew to Berlin to have New Year's. We were planning to fly somewhere to have New Year's. You flew, like, you seriously trusted it to a point to waste New Year's on coming and partying in, like, what? And they were having a blast, honestly. And we were just standing there like, oh, maybe we pulled it off.
It was the best investment they made.
Honestly, yeah.
There were a lot of
and yeah, our reaction to that party, to that New Year's party, how shocked we were. We partied for another like a day. We did a house party for another day, just like 5 people, just us getting shocked of what happened in New Year's. It was so like, it was fully packed, and it was fully packed. And we don't like, it's not like we know everybody. Like we don't know a lot of people that are there, and we're just standing. What is happening? Like, how did it just happen like today? And then yeah, when the sun came up, I just look at somebody and I'm like, guys, what time is it? And they're like, it's 10. And I'm like, what? And they're like, it's 10 in the morning. And I'm like, wait, what? It's 10 in the morning? What? The sun is up? What? And it was just like this. Everything about it was shocking, and even the way we worked together, because we don't have somebody standing at the door that is hired. We don't have You know, there's none of these people. We are the sound people. We are the ticketing people. It's all of us. I'm standing at the door for a while. Dirar is for a while. I'm the sound technician downstairs and upstairs. We're the security. We are the people taking care of the people. We're the bartenders and the DJs. You know, and like we are every character of the team. And you know, we're standing by code check. We're doing literally everything and running up and down the stairs because we have 2 floors. And after that, like we didn't really party that day, but it was the best time we've had in our lives. So we partied afterwards.
We haven't been partying in a long time, I feel. I feel like it simply got into like organizing. It's just been organizing. I think that's the downplay for us, is that a lot of it has become work, where the start was always, yeah, we're having fun, this is a party. Now
yeah, you like to get invited to other parties. You're like, yeah, I can party today.
Please.
Well, let's talk a bit more about the logistics. Like, what does it actually take to put on a party? Because you don't have like many just clubs that you can just turn up and do a party in, do you? You have to like,
no, we don't have
start from scratch.
Yeah.
0 clubs.
0 clubs. And so how does it work if you want to try and put a party on? What kind of spaces are you using?
Guys.
So
Well,
Yeah. I mean, I think the main spaces we have are like bars or lounges that we used to turn into a dance floor kind of, and other alternatives that could go beyond like the regular times of like midnight or 1 o'clock that music have to shut down for a party that is starting at 9 or 10 p.m. You know, we had to go to hotels or like spaces that were allowed to do that, and we also at the same time didn't want to be in a hotel. You know, we wanted to be in a real space where we actually represent ourselves in, and I think we were super lucky to find the space that we started to do a little bit of parties in, mainly the union parties in. And it was very flexible, where we managed to actually build 2 dance floors and kind of have the feeling of being on a dance floor where, you know, you're just dancing. There's no people sitting or having dinner, like, you know, people complaining about the sounds. It's in a place that they're used to go to every day. So I think that the main thing was that it's quite hard to find a place where you can just listen to the music and dance. And that's the space that we managed to kind of open. Coming from the house, that was kind of like the recreation of the house party into a bigger underground venue.
And then also just
kitchen.
Like we had carpenters, like we designed sets from scratch. We got a DJ booth made because we were just trying to, you know, make sense of the space. So like we wouldn't have like one sound system. Sometimes it was like 2 different sound systems, and then we changed the position every party to see like whichever place it worked best. So just like things like these that made it very like experimental and trying to just craft space that could, because it's also not really ours. Like it's not, so it has to go back to functioning into a regular space after we're done. So, you know, I had to be mindful of being as creative as possible and pushing the limits as much as we could, with all the lack of resources and lack of space that already exists. So yeah, it was fun. It was like very challenging and very tiring for sure, but it was incredibly rewarding, and we had a blast. I mean, long nights were spent planning and organizing, and yeah.
I think
what was some of the... Oh, sorry, go for it.
I think naturally a lot of artists like kind of became more involved, and we also had like a sound engineer who gave us the basic equipment. He was like really working hard to get better equipment. He was like becoming more involved, and it was nice because it kind of, you see everyone that worked around that production of a party is becoming more, you know, partying with us and being more involved and not thinking of all the, you know, capitalist structures that have been, you know, forming the party scene in many commercial places, I would say.
What were some of the challenges that you guys would run into in those days?
Yeah, I mean, we I don't know, you can speak maybe a little bit about our restrictions.
Yeah.
I mean, we have pretty tough laws when it comes to venues have to close at 12 o'clock. So that's a bit challenging when people come out at 10 and also always want to continue. Like it just never ends at 12. So we always have that challenge when it comes to the law. Of course, we have various challenges when it comes to culture and how does culture see us and perceive us, and how do we have that understanding. You know, these are challenges that are faced by, I imagine, all techno or electronic communities around the world when they first start off. We pretty much have the same challenges. Of course, then the main overarching challenge that we have is that we also live under a different context and a different situation where Palestine is under occupation, and we have a lot of these challenges that just happen to be there. They are alive and they do exist. So I've had personally maybe 2 or 3 events where I couldn't do them simply because there were people that got killed on that day. So we have these major challenges where, on one hand, you want to celebrate and live life and do what you want to do and feel free and have that space, and then you collide immediately with a reality. And I think these are some of our major challenges when it comes down to it. Thinking about the context that we live in, it's not just a normal space where we can throw a party, have fun, and just go home and, you know, whatever. But there's a lot more, and also for us as organizers, this is a challenge for us to just think like, you know, what are we doing? You know, we need to keep these things in our mind. We need to think about how to think about them, how to have responses to them, and so on. So I think this is some of the major challenges that we have.
Obviously, we're all talking right now from different places, and you guys have mentioned a couple of cities so far. So what I kind of understand, and please tell me if this isn't right, but it seems like the scene across Palestine is quite fragmented, and DJing in one city can be just a completely different experience to DJing in another city. So that we can get an idea of how broadly these experiences can vary, would everyone perhaps like to share an experience of like recently what it's been like to DJ where you are right now? Osama, you're not there, but who else is not in Palestine?
Caidan.
Yeah. But maybe just a recent experience, just so that we can see how the varying scale of what it's like to DJ in that climate.
Well, I could say that my last party was canceled due to Corona. So, yeah, and I think Saruna also had a party this weekend or last weekend, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a little difficult this whole year. It's been challenging, I think, for all of us here to actually do events, due first to the Corona, but we also had some challenges earlier in the year. Around February, there were some. The political climate here was just too tense to actually have and hold anything. But when it comes to different cities, honestly, the main cities that are hosting parties are Ramallah and Bethlehem, and there's also an emerging scene in Jerusalem. But you know, we can't go to Jerusalem. Except Saruna here, I think. Oh, but we can't go. None of us here.
She is from Jerusalem.
Yeah, she is from Jerusalem, so she could go to Jerusalem.
The only one that can do it.
So the major 2 cities that host electronic music events are Bethlehem and Ramallah, and I'm in Jenin right now, so maybe.
No, we talked about this. Don't.
You mentioned lockdown. How do you guys think that this extended period of lockdown will impact on the techno scene in Palestine? Do you think it will be like just a pause and then things will hopefully be able to resume, or is there anything that you've been able to reflect on this time indoors that you think will benefit you guys creatively at all?
I don't know. I would say that I think it's maybe it's a good time to have a little break where artists can focus on their production and collaboration, and you can see a lot of young DJs who are coming up who are actually using the time to like improve, where we're having sometimes some sessions together. You can see there's Radio Al-Hara that just recently came up, where they like widen the knowledge of production of the history of original music, and they're offering spaces not only to artists but also to selectors and people who are involved in other fields to come and speak online, and it had a great kind of echo. So I think what I would say the main hard thing is us getting together, throwing a party. We've been, I would say, economically never dependent on this because it's been a hobby and something we love. But I would say a lot of artists are, in general, around the world, are struggling with, the Corona situation. But we hope that we can use some of this time to like plan a little bit more, maybe be able to work a little bit on some workshops and to connect virtually in a certain way. Maybe plan a festival.
Yeah, finally.
With social distancing.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts on how lockdown might affect the scene?
Well, it's scary, honestly. Just because it's already really small, and then taking away all the gigs, it's put it in a really dangerous place, and it's very unpredictable. So we're kind of just playing it by ear. I mean, politically, economically, everything is kind of hanging by the balance right now. So it's really tough to be able to say whether it's like been permanently impacted. And I think the music industry worldwide has been, I think, in my opinion, permanently impacted by this, which is maybe a good thing. I mean, yes, the consequences are extreme, and a lot of us depend on this financially, and so it's really hard to tell now what might come out of this, especially because the political landscape might be changing very drastically. So that also plays another huge role over whether parties will be a thing at all. So just kind of waiting, maybe looking at alternative things that can be done, projects, workshops, collaborations, so yeah, hopefully, I mean, ideally all of this would be over, but yeah, it's a little too soon to tell whether it's had a massive impact yet or not.
Well, unless anyone had anything else that they wanted to add to that, I wanted to ask you guys about the DJs for Palestine hashtag movement that started not too long ago. Sama, maybe you could share with us how that kind of made you feel at the time, and maybe we could then think about, maybe you guys could explain to me the kind of initial direct impact of that being spoken about, and did you see any change around that time?
Honestly, the thing is that though techno is very related to politics, when it came out, a lot of people talk a lot about how we should disconnect politics from music, and that always creates a debate. But with Palestine especially, we always find that people find it a very sensitive subject to talk about. So they prefer not to. They would talk about all the injustices in the world, but this one they would just like, you know, they just don't want to get into it. And so we got used to that. It became the normal for us. So when that happened and they just stood with us like that and they came out with that statement, for us it was like, oh wow, wait, what? You know, this could happen. Okay, people are actually listening and people are speaking. And when they were attacked this much, we honestly thought like anywhere else they were gonna back down from the statement, and they didn't. And that gave us, you know, so much. It gave us such a big push that, and okay, then maybe there is hope, you know, at the end of the line, you know. And for me, it felt good coming from the scene where I always went to run away from politics, and I felt that people don't want to discuss it, so I just like always, you know, refrained from talking about it. But the fact that they did just gave me hope that maybe one day it can go into that. And yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to add and say that I think music has always been political, even in the Palestinian heritage and in other cultures. But it's also been the first for unity and resistance in a way. And I think there's, I don't know, it's important for musicians and artists to highlight injustice. And that was mainly, I would say, what DJs for Palestine did. They shed the light on the Palestinian struggle, you know, and maybe that for us give us a little bit of hope to have a little bit of awareness. Maybe one day we can, you know, have liberation and live as normal human beings and be able to express and party without being looked at as normal people throwing parties and playing techno and like there's female DJs and all. It's like to be looked at as equal. And we think that it's good to feel that kind of unity globally with DJs for Palestine.
Yeah. Can I also add just a thing that also like the importance of acts of solidarity that especially in an industry that often, you know, puts aside and forgets and maybe deliberately the marginalized communities from that created this music. Like house and techno and hip hop all came out of African American, often queer, often female, often, you know, any marginalized community that sort of creates this art, and then that gets capitalized on and turned into something that is made for consumption instead of staying true to what it actually represented. And I think the importance of doing solidarity and practicing solidarity is also recognizing that there's an intersectionality between these things. The thing with DJs for Palestine was that it highlighted maybe for the first time in the electronic music scene that the importance of not forgetting that aspect, and the fact that the Palestinian struggle and resistance is goes side by side with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the feminist movement, with the queer liberation movement. It all comes hand in hand, and I think that's important to not forget that this is this was made by marginalized people, and therefore it cannot be depoliticized. So I think that was a huge step in that direction.
Absolutely. So we are coming towards the end of our chat, but I would really love to hear from each of you what your hopes or goals are for, or even dreams are for Palestine's techno scene.
A festival. I still want that festival.
You want this. It will happen.
Yes, I really believe that it can make a difference. And I will have fun.
I'm excited to see the next generation of folks coming and taking our place, organizing and doing. So I'm excited for that, to see that, to actually start going to parties and also I'm excited to see more cities being involved. I think that's what it seems really right now with everything, and it's so hard to really plan. But I'm really, my hopes are for the next generation that they can carry on what we've been doing lately, and they can, grow it. We'll have a proper scene here where people could come from all around the world, even if it, hopefully that will come to a festival at the end point. Yeah.
The festival. See, I told you it's the festival, man. It will all go back to the festival.
In a few
I
years,
think I would hope to see like a defragmentation and maybe decentralization in terms of like moving outside of Ramallah, going into maybe more conservative areas and trying to introduce this, concept to maybe other communities and involving the community in that process. And, because of the political reality, that being, ideally there would be no fragmentation of the entire music scene, right? Because you have Haifa and Jerusalem and Gaza and then the West Bank, and it's all just this kind of. So, ideally there would be none of that, and hopefully we could branch out.
That is with freedom, but that comes after freedom.
Well, that's part of the dream, isn't it?
4 steps before that. The festival, then the new generation, then freedom, then that one.
Yeah, no, it's definitely nice to see that, and it's nice to see the younger generation coming up, more productions happening, much more collaboration, and hopefully more venues, and kind of a little bit more reflection on our experiences and on our community, on what does this mean to us, and how can you express yourself in the ways that you would like to. And festival, definitely.
Festival. I win at the end.
Amazing. So there was obviously the DJs for Palestine movement, which did spark conversation amongst people who are just music lovers, not DJs. But outside of Palestine, what can we be doing to help, for people who aren't involved in working in music? How can music lovers worldwide support?
I think it is just mainly knowing about the problem, especially if they're gonna come and talk about it with you. But it's I think it is a problem that a lot of people talk about, and a lot of people just turn a blind eye on and just really don't want to get into it. But that adds to the problem. And I think people getting to know the problem and actually going and seeing it more before they decide on who's right and wrong, because people decide to throw judgments, especially on this one, without actually seeing the place, or like reading about it, or even knowing the history of it. And I think it's also a problem nowadays that people cannot make mistakes and learn from them, because if they make a mistake, they're directly bashed by everybody in the world. And I think that we need to find a solution for that, because nobody can really express how they feel, because they're really afraid of the backlash of it or being in the wrong place. So even when I'm DJing, I find that a problem, that sometimes people come and ask me one time person came and asked me that, what is this word Palestine that you keep saying? And I was like, that is not a word, that's the country I'm from. And he's like, oh really, where's that? And so his friends started laughing and making fun of him. And they're like, wait, you're serious? You don't know where Palestine is? And he's like, no. And I'm asking, and he felt weirded out. But I told them that I get this question so much, and they felt weird, but I do. And I explained to him where Palestine is, and and I think it's good to also let that be, and for people to actually speak about it. If you're not gonna make a post about it and like make a public stand, at least you can share with friends, or at least just get into it, because the amount of people just say that they don't want to get into it is annoying, because they already judge before. but they don't want to get more into it. So it's like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think big part of is at least getting to know a little bit more and, you know, share the light, and hopefully, I don't know, come visit, come party in Palestine, you know, like really get to know a little bit, because I don't know, I don't find that our job or like the audience job is to kind of be political or represent things politically, but the least they can do is to share that awareness and to kind of, you know, see the similarities and kind of to question things around. That is, I don't know, it's quite tough. I feel that we, as Sama was saying, we see people that oppose and people who politically represent themselves are being mashed. So we, in the same place, we do feel a little bit of that pressure. And that means that, you know, even that we're free to express, and people who are in other countries are free to express their opinions, it's still in a way controlled, manipulated.
Yeah, it's definitely not free to express yourself, babe. I'm not free to express myself, and I'm Palestinian. Imagine if I'm not Palestinian and trying to say something about Palestinians. It is even double bash, you know, like I am a Palestinian and I cannot talk about the struggle because then I'm attacking somebody else, but it's not that, you know. I'm just talking about an experience that I had and an injustice that I see that, you know, I feel like us as people need to address. And then you talk to other people about it and then they just look at you with, you know, it's like, what? But you're talking about the gay rights. You're talking about the hunger in Yemen, and this is it's not, you know, it's just, it's basic human rights issues. Like for now, it is that, you know, it's like, and I don't know. And a lot of people say that they want to help and they want to stand with, but they don't know what to do. You know, like I just see a lot of advertisements for Tel Aviv in Israel, and we're not going to make advertisements for Palestine. You know, like the Palestinian Authority is not going to spend time to do that. You know, it's not about advertising the place. It's about knowing the place and the people, and, you know, even without, it's just basic human rights. You know, even if you don't get to know the people, some people getting injustice, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, they can support the artists, they can know a little bit more about the music scene, and of course would be nice to build more bridges for us to kind of see what kind of collaborations we can do with other institutions or collectives around the world, which is something that we also look, you know, very much towards.
I think the awareness. Sorry,
please continue.
No, I just going off what they said. I think awareness is key. You know, being educating yourself, maybe making connections to other, you know, movements, and seeing how all of this interconnects is also key. And of course, you know, opportunities for collaboration, for you know, sharing and just trying to understand the context. I think that helps on its own, and I think a good example of that was DJs for Palestine, just because it raised awareness and then brought more attention on the issue of Palestine.
Yeah. Finally, I just say to anyone, if they can, come visit. The food is great. The scenery is great. It's not as it's depicted on the news. People are alive here. We are doing a lot. Freedom is not given to us. That's why we're taking it. We're doing our events. We're doing what we need to do. So come and experience that. I would say if it's possible right now, we can't make that happen. But there's also another ways to look at different organizations that are doing great work on the ground. And I highly recommend people looking up various organizations in Palestine that they can support if they can't come here, just to learn what they're doing.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That was super insightful, and just really excited for your festival that will definitely happen at some point. So looking forward to that. But thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone at home for watching as well. You can keep an eye on J2v for more discussions and enjoy the rest of the festival.